Imagine driving past the house of the man who once abused you, only to see 6 feral-looking cats lounging in his destroyed yard, a "for sale" sign stabbed into the ground, and the entire street smelling like a giant litter box. And the wildest part, you accidentally caused all of it. If you've ever been wronged, underestimated, or made to feel small by someone who thought they'd get away with it, hit that like button. Subscribe for more stories of justice served in the most unexpected ways. Because today's story, this one proves karma doesn't need permission. I never imagined a breakup would end with me staring at bags of soil, flower pots, and catnip seeds, plotting revenge. But then again, I never imagined I'd end up in a relationship with someone like Ethan. Ethan and I had been together for years. To outsiders, he was charming, smart, funny, the kind of guy who knew how to shake hands and look respectable. But behind closed doors, it was different. His words cut deeper than knives. His temper was unpredictable. And near the end, the arguments turned physical. One night, after yet another blow-up, something inside me snapped. Not out of anger, out of clarity. I looked around the house we lived in together, the one he owned. The one I made a home. I'd spent weeks building garden beds around the entire perimeter. Thousands of dollars. Endless hours of digging, planting, nurturing. And now, I was the one packing boxes. He barely watched me, just leaned on the doorway with that disgusting smirk, like he'd won something. "I'll keep the house," he said casually. "And the garden, obviously." My stomach twisted. "No," I said. "I'm taking my flowers. All of them. You can keep the empty dirt." He rolled his eyes. "Fine. Whatever. Just don't drag this out." That was Ethan. He didn't care about the work I put in, or my emotional investment. He cared about control. Every bag I packed felt like reclaiming a piece of myself, but every memory of the garden felt like something he stole. A week later, after pulling each precious flower out of the soil one by one and carrying them to my car, I headed to the garden center to buy large pots. I remember the sound of the cart's wheels rattling on the concrete, my legs shaky from exhaustion and leftover fear. That's when I saw them. A tiny metal rack labeled catnip seeds, difficult to grow. I stood there for a moment, staring. And something inside me whispered, wouldn't it be funny? Just a little inconvenience. I wasn't thinking about revenge. Not really. I was thinking about balance. About the universe giving me just one moment of quiet satisfaction after everything he took. So I bought handfuls of catnip seed packets. Not with a plan, just with spite. When I got back to the house to pick up my last load, the garden beds were nothing but raw earth, dark, fresh, inviting. He didn't care about them. He didn't deserve them. And the idea felt suddenly, deliciously simple. I tore open every packet and sprinkled the seeds everywhere. Along the borders, between the stepping stones, near the porch, behind the shed, even in cracks in the walkway. I imagined maybe, a couple catnip plants would grow. Nothing crazy, nothing destructive, just enough that he'd have to bend down once or twice, pull up a few weeds, grumble a little. That was the extent of my plan. A petty annoyance. Something microscopic compared to the pain he caused me. After that day, I didn't think about it again. Not once. Life moved on. I healed. I rebuilt everything he tried to break. 8 years passed. Yesterday, I had a new client who lived across town. Beautiful neighborhood, quiet streets, tall trees, kids' bikes in driveways. When she gave me the address, I felt a little jolt in my chest. It was near Ethan's old street. Driving up that road felt strange. Like revisiting a ghost. Not because I missed him, but because I barely recognized the version of myself who once lived there. But when I turned the corner and his house came into view, I slammed my brakes. There were 6 cats sprawled across the front yard. All different sizes and colors, rolling around, rubbing their faces on the grass, practically swimming in the plants growing everywhere. The yard wasn't just messy, it was overtaken. And standing right in front of the house was a bright, sun-faded for sale sign. I must have stared so long I forgot to hit the gas again. When I met my new client, I casually asked, "Sarah, what's the story with that house down the street? The one with all the cats?" She laughed so hard she had to cover her mouth. "Oh, that house. Honey, you don't want to park your car anywhere near it in the summer. The whole street smells like a litter box." My eyes widened. "Seriously? It's the catnip," she said, shaking her head like it was neighborhood legend. Apparently the previous owner tried everything, ripping it out, spraying chemicals, digging it up, covering it with tarps, you name it. Every time he tried to get rid of it, the stuff came back twice as strong. I heard it started from some seeds years ago. Absolute nightmare. I felt my pulse slow, then speed up, then stop altogether. Catnip. The seeds. The garden. My hands in the soil, 8 years ago. I realized, in that exact second, that my tiny act of spite, my laughably small idea, had spiraled into an invasive, unstoppable, neighborhood famous plague. He couldn't sell the house for ages, she added. People kept complaining about the cats. They come from every direction. It's like they have a GPS that leads them right to that thing. I pressed my lips together. That bad? Oh yeah, she said. If you drive by with your window down, you can smell the whole backyard from the street. And in the summer, phew, people avoid that end of the block. I didn't know what to say. My brain was split straight down the middle. One side, that poor neighborhood. The other side, a tiny, unbothered voice whispering, "Good." Not because I wanted him to suffer, but because I wanted the universe to acknowledge what he did. And somehow, someway, the soil he stood on turned against him. When I finally drove home, I thought about how my hands used to tremble when he raised his voice. How small he made me feel. How powerless. And then I thought about him standing in that same yard, staring at a sea of catnip he couldn't control, listening to cats yowl outside his window, stepping into the same mess day after day, unable to escape the consequences he'd earned. It made me feel something I didn't expect. Not pride, not satisfaction, just closure. The kind that arrives years late, yet right on time. He lost the thing he valued most. His clean, perfect, show-off house. My tiny act, my handful of seeds, became the unstoppable force that overran every inch of his property. He couldn't fix it. He couldn't control it. He couldn't dominate it. Nature itself refused to cooperate with a man who couldn't appreciate what he had. The neighborhood knew him as the guy with the cat infestation. The realtor labeled it a challenging property. Potential buyers wouldn't even get out of the car. And all because, one afternoon, I sprinkled a little spite into the dirt. I never meant for things to go that far. But life has a way of balancing the scales, quietly, slowly, and sometimes hilariously. Revenge doesn't always come from rage. Sometimes, it grows from the smallest seed. If this story gave you chills, or a guilty little smile, hit that like button. Comment below, what's the most unexpectedly satisfying justice you've ever seen? And make sure you subscribe, because there are so many more real-life stories coming your way.